Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode. I think we're just calling them episode name of guest now because we got confused with the numbers.
And actually, I have to say, I think episode name of guest is even better than episode and the name of the guest. It saves having to do any thought at all. So wonderful. This is episode name of guest.
There we go. And Rob, who is our guest this week?
Shaun with a silent H, Whorton.
Hello, everyone.
Is that the silent H in his first name or his second name?
Well, it's confusing, and English is not my thing. So, Shaun, it's a pleasure to have you on. It's a pleasure to have you on for an entire hour, rather than just the brief cameos you have given us so far.
No, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me on. Looking forward to our little chat.
So are we. I mean, when you say inviting us on, as we all know, we were let down by somebody really quite exciting. I won't say who, just in case we get a chance to get them back on at another time. And you graciously filled in as the only person we could find at short notice. So, Shaun, maybe.
It's a pleasure, Rob. I'm just so pleased I was invited. So,
one day we will meet and you'll just thump me and I won't see it coming. Oh, entirely deserved, of course. Anyway, Shaun, a real pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. Perhaps you could tell us and everyone watching and listening a bit about yourself and your background in cyber.
Yeah, sure. So, as Rob's expertly pronounced my name's Shaun Whorton. I currently work as a senior penetration tester with somebody in the UK. My background includes an eclectic mix of things, cyber and education. Straight out of university, after studying computer network engineering, I went to work for GCHQ for just under a couple of years, where I worked in signals intelligence and offensive information gathering. Out of GCHQ, I then went on to do a few things. Straight after GCHQ, I worked in the job centre for about a year before I, got my shit together, and then I decided to do a teaching degree, where I trained to be a secondary school teacher. Went on to teach computer science for 11 years. Eventually working my way up to assistant head teacher and deciding that was not for me anymore. Luckily, alongside that, I'd been doing my own sort of pen testing, one-man show, and done various assessments for SMEs and individuals, and basically giving mates rates for about 12 years. And then teaching, became so jaded and disconnected from the profession. I thought, it's just time to pack it in. And then at about the same time as I had that thought, I got a job offer from a company called Hack the Box, which I'm sure a lot of the listeners will have heard of. And I joined Hack the Box as head of content for a couple of years. And then I decided I wanted to do pen testing all the time. I decided I was good enough at doing it. And I'm where I'm at now. And loving it. Absolutely loving it. Do some senior pen testing, some senior pen testing, some junior pen testing.
This is presumably not pen testing seniors or juniors, but
I don't test the juniors or seniors. No, I don't know why I said that. But no, my job title is senior pen tester at the minute with a startup in the UK, and it's going great. Really enjoying it. I still like to keep my toe in the mentoring side, so I help out when I can, as you know, with Caps Lock, and I've got a few irons in the fire there, and just try and help out as many people as I can, really, to try and get into the industry, try and give back, because none of us got to where we were on our own. We were all helped out by somebody somewhere along the line to varying degrees of help. So if I can just, prod somebody in the right direction, or give them access to a resource, or give them a bit of advice, or just listen to what they have to say, then I'm always happy to do that.
What made you choose the easy route of offensive security over defensive security, Shaun?
What made me take offensive over defensive?
The easy route, yeah, the red teaming rather than the blue teaming, the easy side.
So I took the red teaming / offensive side because I found it more exciting. I tried blue teaming for a while, and I found, and I might offend a few people by saying this, but I found it boring as shit. I really didn't like it. It was just logs after logs after logs. And I found red teaming just super exciting. And the offensive side, I like trying to break into something and trying to figure out how it works and then trying to break it and then build it back up again. I just found it really exciting. I didn't find blue teaming that thrilling. And if I'm going to stick at something, I need to be excited by it. I need to feel as though there's some sort of, I don't know, some sort of rush, I guess. I don't like doing boring stuff is the long and short of it. And I found blue teaming boring as hell. They do an important job, and I respect, all the SOC analysts and all of that side of the thing, but it's just not for me. I don't like it.
Fair enough. I love, so you've come from teaching. We've had a number of guests on so far this series. We've talked quite a lot about how youngsters are coming out of education in preparation for not necessarily work in cyber, but just life in general. And something that we have picked up previously is that the education system in the UK doesn't really prepare people for it doesn't prepare them at all well for real life. So as a teacher and a teacher in cyber, how do you join those together, or what are your thoughts on that? What could we do to improve that situation?
Very good question. So I've worked in quite a few schools, universities, colleges as part of my teaching career. A lot of the schools in the UK especially have from my experience and from speaking to colleagues, whether it's in person or virtually, schools have just turned into an exams factory now. It's all about getting high up on the league tables. It's a numbers game now. So if you put into Google UK schools tables, you will see criteria such as progress 8, attainment 8, and all of this really boring educational lingo, which to the individual student means absolutely nothing. But in terms of saying, as a school leader, we are number 3 on the points list because our progress 8 score is 11 billion, for example. So all teachers do now is teach the test. People listening might have children of secondary school age, and if they go away and ask their children, and I know the past 18, 19 months has been slightly different because of the pandemic, but prior to that, it has just been a numbers game. It's been about getting the highest numbers, and by that, you will just teach the test religiously. You'll not deviate from what's on the syllabus / curriculum, and you will just get them through that as quick and as painless as possible. Now, in relation to cyber, well, you have a look at where cybersecurity is on the curriculum for 14 to 16-year-olds. I challenge anybody to look and try and find a course or a qualification that gives anybody leaving secondary school wanting to go into cybersecurity a good start compared to something such as maths or science or any of the any social science, for example. There is nothing. If you have a look at GCSE computer science, which is not necessarily cybersecurity, but is definitely the closest thing out there, there's very, very little. It's basically how not to get phished. Or it will teach you the bare keywords like what's malware,
enlighten us. How do we not get phished? Because it happens to all of us all the time.
Good question. Good question. Maybe they just forget about it because it was so long ago. But in terms of the qualifications, they are not fit for purpose. Now, I was lucky enough to teach in a computing specialist college before I left. That was the last place that I worked. I was head of a department head of computing at a really, really good school near me. And I had pretty much carte blanche as to what I taught outside of the curriculum. So they gave the students quite a lot of time just to be taught by members of staff, whether that's obviously get them the qualifications, but outside of that, you know, teach them some extracurricular enrichment type topics. So in my classroom, I had a like what I refer to as the dirty network of computers. I just let students just, you know, break them, build them, knock them down. You know, there was Kali Linux on there. There was an Active Directory environment, and after school, you know, 2 days a week, I'd teach them basic hacking techniques. You know, I had a 16-year-old get to the top 10 of Hack the Box. I've had students leave there and then go on to study cybersecurity, you know, at universities, you know, around the country. So in answer to your question, how do we get students that are of school leaving age to where they need to be at that age, ready to sort of embark on a career? There needs to be a complete overhaul of the qualifications offered, or what's at least recognised by schools and authorities, because at the minute it's just not fit for purpose. Another thing is having teachers that can actually do it, you know, because there's a massive teaching shortage anyway. Like if I was to give up cyber today, I could get a job tomorrow. Easy in teaching. And that's not being a shithead saying, you know, look at me, I'm the big I am. That's because there's such a shortage of teachers like everywhere. So like somebody like me with my experience, you know, in teaching and cyber said, can I teach cybersecurity here? And like, yes, of course you can. Yeah. Sign on the dotted line. But there's a real shortage of, you know, teachers who can actually A, teach, and B, know the underlying technical stuff. So it's quite a complex problem, really. I don't think there's one answer. I don't think there's one silver bullet to solve that issue, which is a shame, really.
I think we kind of touched on this when we talked to Lorna, didn't we? The fact that cybersecurity changes so quickly anyway, for it to be able to get, for anything kind of cutting edge that's relevant to be embedded into a curriculum. Well, it's already not cutting edge by the time it's got into the curriculum, because
the time it takes a curriculum to be developed and embedded and taught and then delivered.
Yeah, so I guess I still work for them. Some of you might have heard of like Ofqual, which are in charge. They're the regulatory body of qualifications for the UK, and I still work for them as like a subject matter expert. And what I do is like they would give me the draft curriculum for like computer science, and I'd review it. But that entire process takes about 6 years to refresh a curriculum. Like in 6 years, like 6 years ago in cyber, like forget about it. Forget about it. There's no point in teaching that. It just isn't fit for purpose at the minute, which is a real shame.
But do you think they should be teaching more of the fundamentals of cybersecurity, like the things that never change? If you look like 20 years ago, people were still saying, don't use the same password on every service, like segment your network. Like there's definitely some themes that you can look across like every single year when people are coming up with the top 10 of things to do in cyber, and the same shit comes up over and over again. So like including that, and then maybe like networking fundamentals and kind of understanding how things work or how things should work.
Yeah, there's always going to be like the mainstays, you know, password and, you know, network segmentation and how to spot a dodgy URL in an email and, you know, all of that. Those will always be mainstays. I think it's really important anyway to teach that at that age. I would probably argue probably a little bit younger, you know. But there are some sort of advances at the minute in terms of like courses that are offered, you know, more vocational, less academic, more hands-on, but they're very, very few and far between, because again, you need the teaching staff to actually deliver it and actually be able to answer a question. You know, if a 16-year-old comes to you and say, can you teach me about subnet masking? And, you know, a typical IT teacher isn't going to know anything about that. You know, it's a real shame.
But let's just go back. You touched on the curriculum and the fact that schools are now chasing teaching to the exam, chasing the league tables and the positions within them. I found out only in the last week, actually, that the national curriculum as it stands was only introduced in the late 80s. So when I went to school, at the state school I went to, I wasn't taught to a national curriculum. I was just taught to what the school felt was most appropriate. And so at some point it was decided that schools need to teach a standard curriculum, so everyone's learning the same. I can see the logic in that. There's definitely an advantage to the workforce for people being taught and educated the same way. And then, of course, you get the situation that, okay, so we're teaching everybody all this stuff. How do we see if anyone's actually learning well enough? How do we measure that? And that off the back of that come the league tables. So how, unfortunately, I can't see that it's possible to avoid it. Now, I accept that the league table and the positioning within it comes off the back of the testing and the grading, but you can't have one, unfortunately, without having the other. And you can't have either if you go back to the old way of teaching what you knew. So, for example, the three of us could set up a school and we would do a marvelous set of courses based around what we know. But I don't actually know either of you well enough to continue this metaphor all the way through. But I'm guessing that we wouldn't be doing particularly well in animal husbandry because it's not what we have.
That's true.
Prove me wrong, Amy. Tell me that in actual fact you can milk a bull.
Wow. Wow.
I don't know, Amy. Can you milk a bull?
As I say, animal husbandry is not one of my skills.
Clearly.
But I've tried it a few times and the bull's never complained. Sorry. Leaving now.
This is not a school that we can take children to.
No.
Yeah, but my point is, I mean, when I was at school, I had a computer teacher who was really into it. I mean, computers were pretty much new in schools when I was at school, and he was learning from the manual. I mean, it was literally, "Sir, what's happened?" I don't know, hang on. Okay, yeah, this is what we've got to do to move this on. But he was excited and enthused by it as well. It wasn't a chore. He wasn't going through the motions. I had a really interested DT teacher, fascinated in design technology, and I remember he used to build teeny tiny miniature tools out of silver, like minute, and it was an absolute passion for him. And of course, that passion then gets transferred to all the people he teaches.
Yep.
I'm involved in schools now as a school governor, and I also used to do quite a lot of work teaching in schools as an external instructor. And that passion is missing. The having to be capable at everything has replaced the need to be an expert in anything. And I think that's a shame. I'm not saying it's wrong, and I'm not saying that I've got a better solution, but I do feel that the current situation has taken away the passion that people used to have for a subject, and made it much harder for people to come out with any real clear direction for the future.
I think it's difficult in cyber as well, though, because if you think about it, teachers' wages aren't exactly brilliant, are they? So if you're going to teach like pen testing to someone and get paid 30 grand a year, when actually that's just the same as a junior salary for most people in pen testing.
Well, in teaching, you probably have to wait a few years to hit 30k. I think the starting salary outside of London, I've not looked in a few years. I think it's about 24,000. You get your first year, which if you've, which if you've gone straight through uni and your first job is, 24,000, it's not diabolical. It's not amazing. It's okay. But like Amy's rightly said, you could, if you know how to do penetration testing, you're looking at least 35k to 40k as your first starting salary, So where's your motivation? Unless you want to do the noble thing and enter that profession, go down the I want to make a difference route, then that's great. But if you're solely chasing the numbers, where's the motivation? There is none.
No.
Coupled with the absolutely diabolical working hours, and let's call it the working conditions in some schools, the occupational hazards, i.e. the 14 to 16-year-olds who don't usually give a shit about what you think is a good idea. They just want to go out and have a fag, So it's tough. it really is a tough nut to crack.
It is. It's very, very difficult. Something I would never want to do myself.
And Rob, you were talking about, showing enthusiasm and passion for something that isn't on a curriculum. You'll not find that in the vast majority of schools. Like you can't measure enthusiasm. A school can't measure its success on enthusiasm and passion. They can measure it on numbers and hard data, and that's all schools are these days. Which is, again, I know I keep saying it, but it is a shame.
Oh, I mean, as I say, I was a school governor. We had an Ofsted inspection. We got graded as good. 4 out of 5 of the subcategories were outstanding, but our data wasn't good enough for us to be outstanding because we hadn't been good enough for long enough.
Yeah.
So the fact that everything was outstanding was irrelevant. We can't prove you're outstanding because we haven't got the data to prove it, and that's really demoralizing. Unfortunately, within cyber, we don't have that. Although the certification situation in cyber is quite interesting now. The amount of people who are being told, pass this qualification, get this ticket. If you want to do well, you need these certs.
I was just going to say, this conversation sounds like it's translating into this certs versus experience conversation. Like we seem to have a lot, but I think it's an ongoing issue that's in cyber. Like every single person that I talk to who's trying to get into cyber is like, oh, well, I've asked for this qualification, I've asked for this qualification. And I'm like, you just need to show you're passionate. But I don't think you don't, do you? I mean, some employers kind of coming around to that way of thinking. I've seen quite a few job adverts recently where they've been like, you don't need to know the tech, you just need to be passionate, you need to be this kind of person, rather than being, you need an OSCP and a CISP and a whatever else.
Yeah, it is really crazy how things have changed over 10 years. You have a look at entry-level cyber jobs now. They're wanting years of experience, OSCP, CISSP. They want a fully backdated blog. It's crazy. And looking at that as somebody new, you'd probably think, oh my God, where do I start? Like, how much money am I going to have to invest in this that might not even work, or I might not even like? Like, I would say, people starting out, just leave the certs alone. Go and download a virtual machine and just start playing with it. See what you like, see what you don't like. Get a list of all the jobs that are out there. Google the job names, try and find somebody on LinkedIn with that job title, ask for a bit of help, understanding that role. So I think it's a self-inflicted thing, though, on the industry. You look at how many certification shops there are now compared to 10 years ago. They're just everywhere. And where's the equivalency? Like, we have company A offering certification A, we've got company B offering B, C, and C. Like, how does B relate to C? How does A relate to C? Like, if I go to a HR person and say I've got cert B and they're wanting cert A, like, how do they compare in terms of content, in terms of difficulty, in terms of applicability? I think that the real problem is that there is no central standard in cybersecurity. You have a look at other professions. Like, if you want to become a lawyer or a doctor or a nurse, or choose your profession, you will say, right, to do that job, you need to go away and do this very specific course.
At that point, if you start introducing those kind of standards, then you're putting up more barriers to entry to the industry. You can't just go and be a doctor. You have to do like 7 years of training to be a doctor. You can't, if you start doing that, like, I sent you a meme the other day when it was like, requirements to be a hacker. Have a command line. Requirements to join the cybersecurity industry: 5 years experience, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a CISP, but blah, blah, blah.
And that's the other side of the coin. Like, people hacking organizations, like, nobody asks for their credentials. They've got a terminal and they're willing to do it. So why are we so obsessed as an industry to see what certifications you've got when the people, sending you ransomware, like, we don't ask for those people's credentials, do we? So it's so double standard
But
it's such a double standard. It's crazy.
That comes down to the financial implications of taking somebody on. And I'm not saying I agree by any stretch, but when you go through a recruitment process, you need to have an indication of what you're looking for and where you start. Now, personally, I'm not a big fan of certifications. I do terribly at them. Any knowledge I have, I somehow completely manage to miss when it comes to filling in an exam. It doesn't mean I don't know it. And similarly, having a ticket doesn't mean I do know it. It just means that at that point I was able to pass that particular certification. But from an employer's point of view, they need to have something to get hold of. They can't face-to-face every interviewer, every interviewee that applies. So there has to be some level of something that you can work to. And I can appreciate from their point of view that that's why that has to be done. The problem is when the HR team says, this is what we're looking for. And although that might be equivalent, I don't know it is equivalent. So you don't count, because that's what we're looking at, this line here.
Yeah, I absolutely. Yeah. So, from a HR perspective, looking at somebody's CV and going, oh, they've got A, B, C, D qual, that means they can do A, B, C, D thing. But I think the way that people are getting hired now in cyber is completely changing. I don't think it's anything. No, I don't think it's not anything to do with your CV. I think it's less and less every single year. I think it's more about the people the network that you surround yourself with, and the I suppose it's the brand that you put yourself forward as. We have a look at platforms like LinkedIn, people posting every day about a topic of their choosing. If I see somebody who's applied for a job with me and I know them from LinkedIn, and I think, oh, that's the person that talks about networking, computer networking every day. They really know their stuff. I really like what they talk about. They're really good at communicating. They are showing passion. They're showing enthusiasm. I want to speak to that person. Whereas if it's just a PDF CV, I'm reading words, but I'm not really feeling what this person's about. So I think hopefully it goes away. There's less enthusiasm on the CV and more about the actual person behind all the words and all the certs.
I think my mentor group are going to think that I prime people to say this stuff, because that's exactly what I tell them every single week. So if you're listening, Gone Fishing group, bloody listen a bit harder and do what I'm telling you to bloody do. And get on LinkedIn, because that is how people are. That's how people are finding jobs now. And you don't have to be sitting publishing blogs. You don't have to be writing new articles every day. But having an opinion on things in the industry, even just sharing a news article and being like, well, actually, my opinion on this news article is XYZ because I've learned about this and this has informed my opinion. It just, like you said, it shows that you can communicate. It shows you can articulate an idea. It shows that you can share information to people that are not necessarily technical. It shows you're enthusiastic, that you're keeping up with what's going on. That's all the kind of qualities that people are looking for, especially in cyber, where you've got to be on the pulse with new vulnerabilities coming out or new attack methods or whatever. Then just even following the news and having an opinion on what's going on in the world of cyber.
Yeah, absolutely. If somebody's been interviewed for a job and ask them about a vulnerability that came out 2 weeks ago and they go, "Oh, I don't know about that," then I know they're not really engaged within the community, so to say. I know that they're not really keeping the finger on the pulse, and they're probably just applying as a for a financial point of view, which is fine. That's not me criticizing, but it's really an employer's market at the moment. So many people wanting a job. Why should I say yes to you who is coming across as somebody who isn't really that bothered, as a bit of a robot, versus somebody who I can see the passion, I can read the passion in front of them, and it's just the way people are getting hired. Like my past 2 jobs, I've not got them from submitting a CV. I've got somebody approaching me saying, "I've seen this. I know this about you. Can we have a bit of a chat?" And it's gone from there. It's escalated from there. So yeah, if anybody who is starting out in the industry, Amy is not paying me to say this, get your name out there, get it, post something. Even if you think it's been done a million times, you haven't done it. You go away and do it. You make it yours.
I have to say, having gone through caps lock at the beginning of this year and being told that I need to increase my presence on LinkedIn and absolutely objecting to the suggestion that I should become in any way social, I have to also, despite lack of payment, support Amy's stance on this, because it does make a difference. And I am now commenting on stuff all over LinkedIn, not in a big way. I'm not posting my original content because I don't know yet that I'm in a position to say things like that. I'm not confident that perhaps I've got a conversation starter, but I'm looking at other people. People are putting polls on, people are asking about things that I do have a comment on. So I'm commenting, so I'm sharing my thoughts. And then people have engaged with that, and that's how your network grows. So I'm not doing anything that's not me. I'm just doing it slightly more publicly than I might used to.
To be fair, I did bully you into being on the podcast. So you are doing some things that are not you.
In actual fact, if I remember correctly, I was only ever going to edit the podcast and the co-host never showed up. Yeah. Ta-da! Here I am. Now I'm just working out how to get rid of you. Not at all. Amy, I wouldn't know where to go if you weren't leading. I mean, just as an example, see what happens when it's my turn to ask a question. There we go. It wouldn't happen. In fact, you know what? At this point, bearing in mind that I've just driven us into a hole that we will struggle to climb out of, should we perhaps see who is doing the news this week?
Let's do that.
Let's go to the news. Thank you, Shaun. Bong! Here's the news. First up, the story that Facebook has sued a Ukrainian national for allegedly harvesting and selling personal data, describing 178 million of Facebook users. Actions, it says, violates the service's terms of service. The suit alleges that the person in question created millions of virtual Android devices, each with a different phone number, and used them to deliver automated requests to Facebook systems using the Messenger app. Mark Zuckerberg was reportedly unavailable for comment, as he's currently in Kiev awaiting the outcome of a lawsuit about selling the data of Facebook users. Next up, the story that GCHQ is planning to pursue not only nation states deploying ransomware, but also the criminals behind the attacks as well. GCHQ boss Jeremy Fleming stated, "We've got to go after those links between criminal actors and state actors and impose costs," before revealing that the government is not afraid to go on the offence in pursuit of that goal. The government going after criminals. Whatever next? And finally, internet telephone service provider VoIP currently battling a major outage across all voice services, has admitted to being hit by an extortion-based DDoS attack from overseas criminals that knocked it offline last week. A DDoS attack took down the company's platform for nearly 4 hours on the evening of Friday, the 22nd of October. Issues were reported on VoIP Phone's status page at 16:15 BST, shortly followed by an apology and a suggestion to customers that, quote, "you might wish to set your phones to automatically fall over to the PSTN or mobile networks." It's a good job it didn't happen to Tesco Mobile, as the issue could have gone on unreported for weeks because no one would have noticed. You stay safe, InfoSec community.
I'm glad to see, Amy, that we've got rid of that ridiculous weather report. Not that it made any difference whatsoever. So that's an improvement of sorts.
What?
What?
Do you mean you got rid of it?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, it wasn't on just then, so I assumed that's because you wanted to get rid of it.
Oh.
Did you?
You just complained about it too much last week.
Well, it's not like he was listening because he only did the one recording.
Well, that's true.
Anyway,
now we're back from the news. Why don't we talk about the news? Not this week's news.
oh,
Last week's
that's
news.
an idea.
Last
Well,
week's
news in general, things that have happened.
Yeah, like that pen tester that pushed F12 in Missouri. Talk to us about that, Shaun. How difficult is your job other than pushing F12 or pushing F6 twice?
Or you could push F4 3 times.
Ooh,
That is a bit spicy. You can try it, but I don't recommend it. F4 twice, or F3 4 times, or F2 6 times.
So many combinations.
There are so many ways to hack the HTML source code. It is unbelievable. No, on a serious note, how fucking stupid do you have to be to actually go to the media and say our website was hacked? They viewed the source code. Like, who the fuck's briefed that stupid wanker to say that? Honestly.
And I love that when he was called on it, he didn't.
He doubled down.
Yeah, I mean, really, this. Yeah, okay. So it's nothing to do with the fact that you had actually published all that personal information on your website. That wasn't the problem there.
No, like if you dig a little deeper into the story, like we can laugh like, F12's pen testing and all of that, you know, hacked, NSA hacked, CIA hacked, F12. Like he was talking about data that was publicly available in the source code for you, me, anyone to view. So why the fuck is he calling them hackers when they've literally pressed a key on their fucking keyboard?
I've got a Mac and I don't have F12, so technically it wasn't available to me.
Well, you're not.
I don't know how you haven't got an F12 on your Mac. I've got F12 on my Mac.
Nope.
Have you got a mini Mac?
No. Oh, I don't. No, I just haven't got an F12 key.
It's true. It's not there. You can't hack the source code. In fact, there is a workaround that if you right click and then view source.
So a 2-button press.
There's a 2-button press. Yeah, that's so that the F12 approach was patched, and then they found another 0 day in the right click view source.
You could always plug in your hacker's keyboard with an F12 key.
Could do.
That's right.
That would do it.
It's not really patched then, is it? It's still an outstanding issue. Apple, sort it out.
I think Apple have the answer. That just give everybody a MacBook, and then you'll not be able to hack any source code.
And to be fair, there's no like USB ports to be able to plug anything into a Mac, so you won't be able to plug in a USB keyboard. So there we go, problem solved. Thanks, Apple.
There you go. No USB, anything, no mouse, no keyboard. Although it has got Siri, so you could say, "Hey Siri, F12." I'm sorry, I can't hack this.
Now there is a challenge for everyone.
There you go.
Let's see if I can get my Siri to press my F12 key and ruin this podcast. It wouldn't be the first time. But there, you know, we laugh. This is one of many, and let's ignore the fact that the Missouri governor, or sorry, the respected gentleman of Missouri, or whatever it's described as, was an idiot. The content was there, should never have been there, and this is happening left, right, and centre, time and time again. Why is it that people are not learning? I mean, it's not difficult. Why do people think that they can get? Surely someone somewhere says we should not do this. This is not a good thing. There seems to be no oversight, no quality control.
It's pretty bad. Like if we rewind like a few months ago to there was an ICS attack in America. I can't quite remember what sort of control system was hacked, but they said it was a sophisticated hack unlike they've ever seen before. And I thought, oh, that's quite interesting. So I dug a little deeper into the story, and I found out, like, you know, somebody gained access to, I think it was temperature control in a warehouse somewhere, or something along those lines. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna quickly nip onto Shodan now and see how many ports I can see exposed for this particular ICS. And there were thousands, and I ended up just going, like, I ended up taking control of a farm in Russia, you know, that was slaughtering cows, and I could change the speed of the killing things. I can't remember the name. The spikes that penetrate the flesh. I'm just getting a bit graphic now, isn't it? But when they say it's a sophisticated hack, it's really not. Like, it's somebody with the premium Shodan account and a bit of know-how. It's just really nothing complex. The problem is people not securing the shit, not the hacker themselves. And that takes us full circle to what you said at the start, Amy. Blue teaming is harder than red teaming.
Hey, he agreed. Knew I'd get him there. I was actually talking to someone about this kind of thing earlier on LinkedIn, because he was saying, why does Agile make things less secure? So I said, because when you do sprint cycles, things are going into production a lot more quickly than they would be if you're doing a waterfall project. So if you've got a web app that you're developing, you're just pushing it through a sprint cycle because someone wants a new functionality. But it's not getting security tested before it goes online, which is maybe what's happened with that government website, where they've made a change to the website and they've pushed it into production. But that's no one's gone through and sense checked it or done a proper QA on it. Like you were saying, Rob, it should have gone through a QA process. But with Agile, a lot of the time you're trying to just meet a sprint deadline, so stuff gets missed.
Yeah, but that's just bad management of the Agile process. There's just because you're on a time frame, just because you want to get it rushed out, doesn't mean that you pull steps out the way to achieve it. It's like going to a doctor and saying, we've got 2 hours to save this person. Okay, well, we can do it in 2 hours. However, we won't sew them back up. We'll send them out with a massive great hole in the middle of them, because we've done the bit that needed to be done, and that we can pick that up at some other point. It's not going to be a problem, unless of course they fall over and everything falls out of them. You wouldn't. It's nonsense. It's just ridiculous.
But I don't think people see security as being a necessity, and that's where the problem lies. Well, how many development companies have you talked to? Oh, I've talked to a few recently where the developers like, my code's totally fine, nothing wrong with it, and you're like, okay, sure.
It's like when you go to a pub as a youngster and they go, "Have you got any ID, mate?" They go, "You have my word."
Yes, absolutely. And at school they say, "My word is my bond."
Yep. I cannot tell a lie.
But we've touched on this in the past, and it's something that continually annoys me and will continue to until it's fixed, which will be never in my lifetime. We don't view digital security the way we deal with physical security. Nobody, I think even the least savvy person would realize that having a 6 foot thick steel door mounted in a plasterboard frame is not going to help you, because you're not securing the entire situation. You just
it's like that website. If you'd put all usernames and passwords spray painted on a fucking wall in a building, someone would be like, "Don't think you should be doing that."
Well, yeah, but then somebody comes along and says, "Yeah, no, it's fine though, because it's behind a curtain." So nobody will see it unless they pull the curtain back, and they shouldn't do that.
I think with physical security though, it's easy to. This is going to sound fucking stupid, but hear me out. Like you can see, everybody can see physical security. It's not this abstract thing. You told somebody about Cisco firewall rules as cybersecurity, they're just going to turn off like that. Like everybody can see, everybody knows how to badge in. Everybody knows that what a security guard is. Everybody knows what thick walls.
But you still manage to breach that on a regular basis.
That's true. Yes, I'm not saying physical security is any better than cybersecurity. What I'm saying is people can understand physical security a lot easier than they can cybersecurity. They know who's accountable for what, so and people feel safe with physical security. If they can see it, it's a lot easier to make that ubiquitous than cybersecurity. You can put in you can put in badge in, badge out doors everywhere. You can put in CCTV, you can put in security guards, you can put in whatever, physical access controls, and people will feel safe.
Do you think it's like the terminology that we use that makes people not understand what it is, though? Because in simple terms, a firewall is literally just a gateway between your network and the internet. If people understood that.
Oh, I think the terms we use it makes us sound like fucking imbeciles. Like, if you think about the words we use to describe the most simple shit, like, oh, where's your multi-factor authentication access token? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's a number.
The USB dongle that you gave me.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we need to boil down, get rid of this fucking stupid terminology that we use. If we want to speak to lay people about how to secure the shit, need to put it in terms that they can understand. And that's not because they're stupid. It's just because it's sector specific. You know, if somebody from an abattoir came to talk to me about killing animals, they'd probably throw loads of abattoir terminology. I don't know why
he's using that Russian farm came over and had a chat with him, and now he's okay with all the abattoir words. And that's why
I have heard that
Russian abattoir hacks you.
Yeah, you don't want to be going out in your bear suit. They're gonna be after you. But the industry does talk its own language. All industries talk their own language, as you say. But as a newbie to the cyber industry, oh my God, it's a whole new world, he says, thinking Aladdin in his head. It's so hard to get a handle on the vocabulary that's needed.
It's not even just the vocabulary. I think it's the sheer amount of fucking acronyms that we use. Like,
way too many acronyms.
When I used to sell Microsoft security, there was MCAS, AAD, there's like ATP, MDATP, 0365 ATP. Like, there's just everything's got a fucking acronym to it, and then they switch all the acronyms around because they decide to have a rebrand, and you're like, what the fuck? I don't know. I've only just learned the last lot.
But it's like a club, because if you don't know it, you're not in the club, and yeah, we don't need to worry about you because you don't know it. So, and it does make it very hard. If we spoke, as you said, Shaun, if we spoke in language that made sense to the layperson, and if we spoke about the industry as something that they could relate to, our job would be considerably easier, because we wouldn't be fighting.
Talk to people like the CEOs. Talk to people like the CEOs, not the CTO. That's what I think.
Well, it's like I was talking to my team about cloud security last week, and we were talking about Amazon versus Microsoft, and I was like, Microsoft wins for me every time because I understand what the fuck I'm looking at for a start. EC2, what the fuck does that mean? It's just a virtual machine. Just call it a virtual machine. Stop making it fucking confusing.
It's an EC2 instance.
S3 bucket.
Sam, I am.
Nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
Yes, very, very difficult.
But I think that's a really pertinent issue. Like, everybody's moving to cloud. Not everybody will use the same cloud provider. Not everybody will have infrastructure as a service, or software as a service, or XYZ as a service. How are you supposed to? And there's obviously the three main cloud providers, all using the different acronyms, like, you know, S3 buckets or EC2 instances, or if you go on AWS today, the amount of services they offer and the amount of acronyms that they contain per service, like, nobody can keep up with that unless you are just focusing on AWS. I salute anybody that can keep all of those acronyms in their head alongside all of the cybersecurity vanilla acronyms. It's crazy.
Yeah, but I don't know why we do it as an industry. Why do we? It's like we're already people moan about gatekeeping, and for me, it's just another way of gatekeeping people out there. And we moan that, you know, it's like Cybersecurity Awareness Month this month. Well, how the fuck is anyone meant to be aware of the cybersecurity if no one knows what the fuck we're talking about?
Well, they're aware that there's so many acronyms, so they think, well, fuck that, I'm not listening. They just switch off. Just put it in lay people's terms that they can understand. Like, choose a secure passphrase. Don't tell anybody your passphrase. Change your passphrase every month.
No, don't do that. Don't tell people to do that. That's really bad, really shit advice.
Go on. Tell me why.
Well, the NCSC says not to change your password on a regular basis, because if you change it on a regular basis, then you'll have to write it down because you'll fucking forget it, where you should just use one memorable passphrase.
Not the NC. Oh, in fact, I'm not going there. They're a subsidiary of DCHQ. I respect NCSC.
Good.
I dropped my money. We'll probably have to edit that out.
I might. I mean, you know, we're struggling for content today.
So who decides how often we should change our password / passphrase?
Well, technically, you shouldn't really have to change. I feel like it's every time I fucking talk to you, it's like a quiz. I think you shouldn't have to change your passphrase, password, whatever you want to call it, at all, unless you know that you've been breached. If you've got multi-factor authentication switched on, unless you know that service is being breached.
So you're saying keep the same passphrase? I'm not using passwords because we shouldn't be using passwords. You're saying we should change that? We should never change our passphrase unless it's breached.
Yeah. What's the point?
Okay.
I would.
If you've got MFA switched on, if you've got MFA switched on and you've got a different passphrase for all the different services you use, so you've got you're using a password manager, then there should be no need for you to change the passphrase.
But what if you were a victim of social engineering and somebody grabbed your MFA code and now has access to absolutely everything?
No,
they have access to one service because
they've
got
accessed
one
one service because you've got multiple passphrases.
In which case, as I've just fucking said, that's being breached. So you should change it.
After they've been breached?
As soon as you know you've been breached.
You know you've been breached, yeah.
I've been intentionally facetious now, so I'll just say, yep, okay, I respect your opinion, and it's okay to have different ones.
It is okay to have different ones.
What's
and
the
also,
point of changing it if it's not being breached? Go on. If it's not being breached and no one's got hold of that password, what's the fucking point of changing it?
What is the latency between a breach happening and that data falling into an attacker's hands?
No, but I'm saying if it's not being breached, if they've been breached, you should change it. So if you know they've been breached, companies are responsibly disclosing that there's been a breach of their services, which they should be doing.
Okay, so let's. I'm going to jump in the middle of the two of you here, because we have polar opposites. Although Shaun is being very accepting of other people's opinions.
I'm not.
Less so Amy.
Thank you.
But there is a point here, which is you don't know if you've been breached until you have been breached. Yes, you're right. Theoretically, every good service that suffers a data breach should report that and publish that. But we know that they don't. We know that they will sit on it for a period of time whilst they try to mitigate their own financial concerns before they make it a public issue. And during that period of time, you are unprotected. However, a combination of things. One, multi-factor authentication. So yes, you have lost, your passphrase has been breached along with your user login, but you have got a secondary authentication process which should still be protected because it should be coming to you. It would require an awful lot of things, not an awful lot, it would require a number of things to be lined up for it to all go wrong concurrently. The other thing is, we said not that long ago in this conversation about making things manageable for the layperson, talking about cybersecurity in a way that the layperson can get their head around it. And there is a problem with telling people to change every passphrase once a month. I have got 400 at least separate passphrases. To change those every month, my God, it's going to be like painting the fourth bridge.
I'll see you in 11 hours.
Yeah, exactly. So there has to be a balance between, you know, how you manage certain things and how you manage other things. I mean, my financial accounts, I actually have multi-factor authentication, but triple. So I feel fairly confident that that's secure. My, I don't know, access to I'm trying to think of one. My access to a particular shopping site, that I just browse in and have never shopped at and don't actually have any details stored in there, I'm less concerned about. But I still have MFA on it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think a blanket statement for either one is not the solution. I think from Amy's perspective, never changing your passphrase, perhaps maybe not the best idea. Shaun's perspective of changing every passphrase every month, I don't think it's going to be practical for the majority of people. I think a balance, and more importantly, I think an understanding of what's at risk and how it's at risk, because people talk about, well, I'm not worried about my account because they wouldn't be looking to target me. But that's not the problem. The problem is not whether they target you. The problem is that they have got all your contact or all your details, and from that they can access more, and from that they can access more and delve deeper and deeper. And the average person does not get that. They have no concept of that rabbit warren and how deep it goes. So educating there, I think, would be far more important than saying change it every month.
Let's just change it every 5 weeks.
Compromise.
That'll give me a week off to actually use them.
There you go. I've just given you the gift of time. Enjoy.
Oh, thank you so much. Although saying that, I was in a shop the other day, and I went to use a new credit card, and I realised as I put it into the machine that I'd never bought anything with it. I'd never used it in person, so I'd never put the PIN for the card in, and it wasn't what it was previously, as I discovered to my embarrassment. So I then had to take the card out, take my phone, log into the app, code and Face ID, text message, type my text message, then find out what the PIN is for that particular card, then go back into shop. Had to do it outside the shop because there was no signal in the shop, and just, oh my goodness. And then saying, oh, you can use our Wi-Fi if you want. Oh, no, I'm not using your public Wi-Fi
to look at my credit card details.
To check my PIN. I'll do it. Thank you. That's very nice of you, but no. Oh my God, absolute fiasco. But then, if it had been my wife, she'd have done it all. Well, she'd probably have got the slip of paper in her purse and just copied it straight across. Sorry, hon. We know it's true.
Or gone into the shop. Rob, what's the PIN? You'll be on the other end. Don't shout it out.
4.
Yeah, I won't shout it out. 6, 9, 4, 7. Thanks. 6947. Okay, I'll put in 6947. 6947. Bang. It's 6947.
Absolutely. Well, it's when you phone. It doesn't happen so much now anymore. Thank goodness the PCI has stopped it. But I remember years ago phoning people up to buy something, and then you could hear them writing down on a piece of paper your card details, and you're like, are you putting this straight into the machine? No, what we do is we write it on a piece of paper so that if it doesn't go through the first time, we can put it through without having to contact you.
There is a certification provider which shall remain nameless for the purpose of the podcast. Whether they are ethical or certified or hackers, I don't know. But what you do is, what you do when you buy this particular course, again, not naming names, and again, if this is ethical or not, I don't know. Could be hacked, especially if you're certified. When you sign up to this course, you put in your payment details, and rather than using a system like, I don't know, let's say Visa or MasterCard or whatever, the sheer numbers of payment processing software out there at the minute, they don't do that. What they do is take the long number and the strip of your whatever card you're using, your expiry date, your signature code, all of that, and they put it in a fucking Excel file. And what they do is send it to head office in India for somebody to process your payment to undertake said certification. Yeah.
Wow.
That is not secure.
Wow.
Let's hope somebody certified, hacking, ethical or otherwise, doesn't get hold of that.
That's
No,
terrifying.
not good, is it? Maybe that's like the first part of the test for the certification. Like, if you're stupid enough to give them your details. Sorry, it's a fail.
So anyone who has got who's gone to get certified through this organisation has failed by default. Because they've gone to do it through that organisation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, this is if it's the organisation I'm thinking of, you don't.
Well, let's not name names. Let's not name names.
Not naming any names.
No. Yeah, it's pretty frightening. They tout themselves as being the leaders in certain industries when they're processing payments via Excel and email.
Fair. They're not a leading payment provider though, either. So they're just a leading certification provider. So that's all right.
Yeah, I never said we did that bit well.
No, absolutely not. We don't. It's frightening.
It's frightening, and it's people. It's education. It's about understanding. It's about the logic of it. It's about the people who are, I guess, almost afraid to challenge because they think the experts will know better and it's an assumption. So often things are happening that are just absurd if you actually look at the detail of them. We've talked about this so many times over the past 2 months.
People need to challenge people though, because I don't know about like anyone else, but like when I talk to people in the industry who I consider to be experts, a lot of the time they're going, I'm just winging it. People are winging it all the time. Like, people don't know the answers to everything. You just people just make it up as they go along.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
No one's ever a fully fledged adult, either. No one's actually going to be an expert in absolutely everything. People have opinions that make things that kind of skew their view on things. Clearly, like me and Shaun, obviously, I'm a much bigger expert in cyber than he is, obviously, and we've just had a disagreement about passwords there.
Absolutely.
Like everyone.
I think it's really important to note that there was a mutual respect in that back and forth. But yeah, I think anybody sort of touting themselves as an expert in cybersecurity is really dangerous. It's quite toxic, really. How can we be an expert on absolutely anything in cyber? Like things are changing so quickly every single day that what you knew last week is no longer relevant today because something else has happened, or there's been a development in a technology, or there's been a new 0 day, or a new operating system. I mean, Windows 11's just come out. Like, what's going to happen there? There's going to be loads of things coming up in the next 6 to 12 months regarding the security of Windows 11. And I saw somebody on Twitter saying, I'm a Windows 11 security expert. I was like, how? How have you done that?
That's impressive.
How have you learned everything about an operating system that hasn't been fully rolled out yet, you moron?
But this takes us full circle, Shaun, and I love the way you've done it. But I believe that my expertise lies not in what I know, but in who I know. That if something arises, either I know a solution, but far more likely is I will know someone that I can turn to, or will know somewhere that I can go to get the information necessary to solve the problem, to find out the information. And taking this back, as I said to the beginning, schools are not educating youngsters in those sort of skills. Schools require you to learn the knowledge to pass the exam, but you don't have any understanding of where that knowledge comes from, or how you can develop it, or who you can talk to improve it and get more from it. And that I think is what is lacking. I have children, a couple of whom are heading towards school leaving age, and it worries me that they don't have those skills. They are being taught how to pass a test. They are not being taught how to learn, how to gather knowledge, how to use and decipher information. The classic, I read it on Facebook, it must be true.
Like, just to how pertinent that point is, like we take GCSE computer science, they want you to, for the exam, learn how to add 2 8-bit binary numbers together. And one student asked me one day, why don't we do 9? And my response was, why don't we do 9 bits per binary number? And I said, The exam only wants you to do 8, so I'm only doing 8, which is a real shame because that person obviously wanted to know a little bit more. And my response was, you don't need it for the exam. So why do I need to fill your head with that when you've got 12 other subjects to learn as well?
So what are your final thoughts about pretty much anything we've discussed, from anything from double standards in the cybersecurity industry to ridiculous acronyms to pen testing being done by pushing F12? Any final thoughts on any of those things?
That is a wide chasm of eclecticness that you've just mentioned. Final thoughts. 1, the UK education system is not producing cybersecurity aware young adults because it is not fit for purpose and it needs completely overhauling. I want there to be more enthusiasm in people coming out of schools rather than just teaching to the test. In terms of F12 pen testing, I'm literally speechless over that. Although from now on, I'm just going to keep pressing F6 twice if I want to hack the NSA, because that gives me 12. And I think I was right about changing your passphrase every month to 5 weeks. And that is a hill I'm going to die on.
I do have one concern, though. If I change all my passphrases from 1 month to 5 weeks, does that not just mean that anyone types in 5 weeks has got access to all my accounts?
Look, do what I do, Rob. I don't have a bank account. I put all of my money in a drawer over there, and then when I need to pay the mortgage, I put some money in an envelope to Nationwide, send that off because that's more secure. Any bill that I need to pay, just get all the money out from underneath the rug. Don't use online banking; that's bad. Don't even have a bank card. In fact, just pay for everything with checks or postal order.
I actually have gone one stage further than that, Shaun. I have no money.
Easier.
Yeah, exactly. Just live.
Rob me.
Things you own end up owning you.
We have got one more thing to ask Shaun.
Go on.
Will you come back next week and interview Jason Street with us?
You know what, Jason E. Street. I mean, if we're talking about people who I admire in the industry, he is.
Apart from me.
If we're talking about people who we admire in the industry, he is number one for me. He is such a cool. I'm going to say is such a cool dude. Some of the physical social engineering stuff that he does is really inspiring. I love the way he presents himself. I love the way he teaches. Yeah, I'll absolutely interview him.
Oh, fantastic. Well, it would be brilliant to have you on next week with Jason E. Street. All I ask, of course, is that you are as professional, cool and laid back as you've been this afternoon.
I'll try my best. I will try my best. But no, thank you for having me on. It's been good to chat about a wide range of things. So thank you very much.
All right. So buckle up, Buttercup. You're in for a roller coaster of feels with me, Jason E. Street, next.